what Georgia's Hope did is they came back and they said, unequivocally, they said low THC oil is not a dangerous addictive gateway drug. I contend that it could be. It probably isn't, but it could be. You have to at least open yourself up to the possibility that it could be. Terry could have an unlimited number of funds. She could buy a bottle of this stuff somewhere every day and she could guzzle it down and she'd be loaded all the time. And they have found, this is an interesting paper that I read, THC, they're finding that it does have addictive capabilities. It does. However, they are finding that the presence of CBD in the mix actually does reduce its propensity for addiction. So that's an important thing. This bill is still in the works, and it's either going to pass within the next 24 hours, or it's going to be another year before anything is resolved. And that's too bad. All of these comments, there are general, the thing about opioid deaths, and that this is getting people off opioids everywhere in the country and it's benefiting everybody. That's a correlation. There's not a cause and effect that's been established. That's important. This was an interesting thing that came up, that there is no difference really. This is someone that Georgia's Hope took exception to. There is no difference really in the marijuana that we call medical and the marijuana that is recreational. That's a true statement. It's all the same plant. It's cannabis sativa or cannabis indica. It's the same thing. It's just how are you using it, and do you know what you're doing with it? One of the things that I want to, item 3 there, a bottle of this stuff is expected to cost between $100 and $150 per 2-ounce bottle. And this is not recognized in any insurance company's formulary at the moment, so this is just out-of-pocket expense. There are a lot of desperate parents with having kids with epilepsy that are on Medicaid that they're not going to be able to afford this stuff. So if you're a fairly wealthy person in an urban area, you're probably okay, maybe, but it still is going to have an effect. This is the bill that's currently up, and it's being hashed out as we speak, and it may go on the Senate floor tomorrow. If not, it's a dead bill, and we'll deal with this again next year. This statement was important because it kind of harkens back to North Carolina. The General Assembly finds that thousands of Georgians have serious medical conditions that can be improved by the medically approved use of cannabis, and the law should not stand between them and treatment necessary for life and health. That sounds very similar to North Carolina's House Bill 401. Very similar. These guys are doing some good, and they're coming to some reasonable statements, right? And the disclaimer down below, it doesn't mean that we're in favor of recreational. We don't want to go there right now, but we do want to look at the medical. So this is how the bill was changed, how it morphed. The Lieutenant Governor came up with this brilliant idea that if we have the bucks, can we just buy it from Oregon and somehow get it here? Or can we buy it from Florida and somehow get it into Georgia? And everybody was saying, you can't do that, you can't do that.
No, you can't.
He's willing to say, what do we have to do in order to make that happen? Maybe we can. So he threw it in the law as being a possible. That's not bad. That might be an okay thing. They changed the Class 1, Class 2 licenses thing. Now, the Class 1s, those guys with the big bucks, well, right now, they only have to have, I believe, they're only given 450,000 square feet of space, and they can have 5 access retail outlets. They have to have at least 5 million now, not 10 million.
And it's not unlimited grow space.
No, it's only 450,000 square feet of growth space. So they're not giving them the farm, they're giving them 80% of the farm, but not the whole farm. So that's an improvement. The Class 2 license holders, these are interesting because you have to have at least $500,000 in available cash, okay, and you have fewer retail outlets, and you can only have 40,000 square feet. Actually, that 40,000 is more than the 20,000 they were promised in the House bill. So this is better, and I can actually see where somebody in Georgia may invest in this. What they decided, though, was there can only be one Class 1 and one Class 2 at the moment, no more than that. What they decided to do as well, authorize the university to get involved. This gets back to what former Representative Alan Peake wanted, that they have the first right of refusal. So the universities can actually become the grow production distribution facility. That's not bad. That's pretty cool. And again, this is another option. Will it work? Let's get it in the bill and let's spend the next 9 months figuring out if we can make it work or not. That's pretty important. Universities have the first right of refusal for even those Class 1 and Class 2 licenses. That's not bad. And down below, they're saying, which the House bill didn't say, each designated university may conduct research for therapeutic use if they're a production facility. They want them to. They want to find out what this stuff really does and what it doesn't do. And then we get down to the dispensaries. I still don't think that the dispensaries are going to be viable. There's no home delivery anymore. So for Terry and me to get this oil, we're still going to be driving to Atlanta probably, or wherever there's a dispensary, the nearest dispensary. That's not really convenient, and if you are blind, like Terry is, she couldn't drive herself, I don't think. I wouldn't want her to. The other thing that they're doing, and this is good and bad, they want to determine if this stuff really works for these conditions, and in order to do that, they want physicians to funnel in information about their patients and see what's, I know that's what I do too. I don't think the physicians are going to want to do that. I think there are HIPAA regulations that are going to come into effect, and people are going to be very concerned about doing that. So this, everything else being good, this might limit the enthusiasm and even involvement that physicians have in this program. That's a negative. This was interesting too. You remember, I made a point of saying that in North Carolina, they were looking at agriculture. They wanted agriculture involved. Georgia doesn't. Georgia is actually saying they don't want agriculture involved in this. They want it to be the health department. They do not want the agricultural department to be involved at all. Strange as it may seem, the agricultural department said, we don't care. We don't really want to touch this right now. And then they said, as an add-on at the very last, prohibit ingesting low TH oil through vaping. The reason this is important, if you have one of those neurological conditions, vaping is the quickest way to get it into your system and
relieve symptoms.
Yes, relieve the spasticity, relieve the pain. It is the best way. But the sheriffs are afraid that it looks bad. It looks like you're smoking. It looks like you're smoking dope. We don't want that. And so appearance then is negating the efficacy of medicine use. That's a problem. As you might imagine, Georgia's hope, and I'm going to put all this on the website so you can go through it, but basically Georgia's hope said, we don't like the Senate's bill at all. We didn't have anything to do with it, really. Ours was better, and so we really like everybody to go back to ours, but this isn't, maybe this will change over time, but we don't like this bill. Home delivery is still an issue. As I said, that's not going to change, I don't think, because the sheriff saw that as being a weakness. People on the road that were delivering it, they didn't like that very much. Rachel mentioned it when she first opened. The laws that we have on a federal level are the things that are really screwing us up. On a state level, as individual constituents, that's where the problem lies. And they're stalling. The feds are stalling. The states are desperate, and they're doing everything that they can. And individuals like Rachel are doing everything that she can to educate people, to say CBD is okay, it's not to be feared. THC is really okay if you do it right. Let's kind of talk about it, and let's come up. This THC CBD stuff, even though the Farm Bill said that CBD is okay, it still is on the schedule list. CBD, as it is, marijuana, including both constituents, THC and CBD, are still on the Schedule 1 list as a dangerous drug. Marinol is, I used to work for Abbott, AbbVie, and they have a product called Marinol that is a synthetic THC. It's on Schedule 3. It's not listed as being heinous. It's something that can be used medicinally. It's synthetic THC. for all the things that we would be using THC for, by the way, and something called Epidiolex that is a CBD, is a very pure CBD from the UK, and it has a cost for patients, for parents of children with epilepsy, $32,000 a year. Yeah, and it is on Schedule 5. Yeah, it's allowed, but it is nothing different than what Rachel has in that bottle over there. It's the same thing.
Same thing. Well, actually, I don't know, because I think they might add something else into theirs, because they had some questionable side effects from their focus groups that lead me to believe that it's not just CBD, that it's something else that they want you to keep coming back for.
Go back and read the study.
Yeah.
Look at the dose. The dose is phenomenally high.
Is it?
Yeah, and
So that was one of the problems, is it's too much CBD.
Which
So-
for epilepsy, it's warranted for, but, sorry, Greg, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to get this out. The FDA cannot sanction placing a DEA scheduled drug in food products. That's where they are right now. They're stuck, because even though the Ag Bill says hemp-based CBD is okay, the Schedule 1 in DEA says, no, it's not. It's still illegal. The DEA can still storm in, and they have still stormed in, to places that are selling the CBD oil that you mentioned, Jennifer. They're going in and they're saying you can't sell that because that is a controlled substance. It's just a mess. What we have to do, what the feds need to do, this currently strengthening the 10th Amendment through Entrusting States Act, it would amend the Controlled Substances Act to say, hey, if the states have a decent medical cannabis, let them go with it and let them use it, and it's okay, and we promise that we will not get involved with it. That's pretty cool, and that is something that is currently in our U.S. Congress, and that needs to pass so North Carolina and Georgia can get on with doing what the feds weren't allowed to do or refused to do. That's it, guys.
Thank you for your attention.
This is a very meaty presentation. And we at the Public Policy Network like to get into our issues. As a former public policy analyst, I love this kind of stuff. So, but anyway, we are all volunteers and we rely on donations to rent the room, maintain our website, and we would really appreciate anything you would like to donate to us. And we ran really way over. We have time for maybe a couple of questions and then...
Tell me about how do you get from the flower to oil?
You want to do it?
You know, how's the mechanism of getting the molecule in there? Do you have an oil that you...
You do. So the cannabinoids are, they can be extracted in two ways. They're not water soluble, so you couldn't put it just in tea, like as you could lavender, and be able to extract it that way. It has to be in an oil, or alcohol is the other way that it can be extracted. The oil extraction is a method that I use at home. It's very simple. The reason using oil at home is easier is because it's non-flammable, whereas alcohol and reducing it in the vapors and such, if you don't have the right equipment or the right sort of ventilation, you could end up possibly hurting yourself. But the cannabinoids, they are oil loving, so when they're submerged in oil, and especially if either time or heat is basically your mechanism to get them out. Now if you don't either heat the oil or heat the plant matter beforehand, you're going to be extracting the acid format as we talked about, either the CBD-A or the THC-A. So you could either heat the material beforehand, activate it, extract the active components into the oil, or you could heat the oil after and activate it that way. But that's basically, it's a process. I'm actually teaching a class on it at Kula Wellness in Brasstown on April 20th, if anyone's interested to come learn the technique. We have signups for that. But
Here's the other interesting thing. The Georgia law, the Senate law, says that you have to use ethanol. That's written in the bill. It shouldn't be written in the bill, but it is. You can't use lipids. You can't use oil. You have to use ethanol.
And it's a solvent, and that's a concern of removing solvents after the fact is quite a process.
And the reason they did it is that the only thing that they know is they used ethanol in the food industry. And that's what they know. That's their reference point.
This is why they don't want you to vape.
Oh, well, no, that's not true, but it's just interesting. I don't fault anybody on any side. They're trying to do the best they possibly can with the limited information that's available to them. It's just that we all need to talk together if we're going to solve the problem.
So with the same oil product that you take systemically, under your tongue, or you drink it down, would that still work in an old-timey vape pen?
It would.
Yeah.
It would.
It's not the healthiest way to do it in any oil.
No.
You'd want it, mostly the safest way is to extract it with CO2. CO2 is another way. So it's in basically a closed gas chamber in a closed loop, and it will extract the cannabinoids, and the oil itself that it extracts is the cannabis oil. So you're not adding it to like an oil, like you don't want to smoke cannabis or a coconut oil, cooking oil.
Exactly.
Like you don't want to inhale the things that are in it. So.
Exactly. But you're
But
right.
But if you had a CO2 extraction, which is like a concentrated,
Yeah.
then you could
vape
vape it
You could.
more safely than the other way. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what CBD number is best for working for arthritis?
You know, that is, everybody's different. There's not a set
Yeah.
a set amount. There can be two people of different stature, size, weight, stuff like that. I need a really high dose, that's just me as a person, but I also need high doses of everything. I stay awake under anesthesia. I have to like speak with my anesthesiologist before. I was awake during an endoscopy once. It was not very pleasant. So I require, even when I used to drink alcohol, which I don't partake in anymore, cannabis is plenty for me, I would need high amounts of it as well. So, that's just my body type. Now, some people might be extremely sensitive to it. I have friends that can take 2 or 3 drops of an oil and that helps them.
Sweet.
Yeah, some people are really sensitive and they don't need much, and that's great too. And really there's no way of knowing until you try it. And I always recommend to people you start low and work your way up so that you're not that taking more would hurt you in any way, but that way you can get your lowest possible dose and get the best, value for your purchase.
However, one person's low is another person's high. One person's ceiling is another person's floor, right? And so what they told Terry to use as the low starting point was actually higher for her from a THC level than she could work with. And so we had to tone that back. We're all using ourselves as guinea pigs, right?
And they've done that for years. I mean, if you've ever been put on an SSRI or anything like that from a physician, they start you with a low amount and they say, see me in 2 weeks, we'll increase it. See me in 2 weeks, they increase it. And I've gone through that rodeo with them when I had fibromyalgia, so it's no new system. I mean, doctors have been doing it like this for years.
It's true. It's all trial and error, basically.
It is, but it's all trying to use what they effectively used before in another slightly different situation.
Yeah.
I have a quick question about, I've just read recently about using the oil, and I don't know if it's just the CBD or...
CBD.
Whatever, CBD.
Yeah.
For pre-cancer, skin cancer. Do you have any information on that, if that's valid?
There's been studies that show that it has proliferating properties to where it wants to divide cancer cells. So many people do take it as not only as basically like an anti-cancer for its I always mess up that word. Its splitting cell properties, but also as a neuroprotectant, as the government put a patent on, as you saw. And a neuroprotectant means it's going to protect your brain cells from aging. So it's a big thing for like preventative for Alzheimer's and stuff like that.
But this is kind of weird because for everything that you're directed towards, we can find another report that directs you in the opposite direction. Cancer is a weird one because cancer, Rachel's right, and Rick Simpson's oil, there are cases where people have reduced tumor growth incredibly using this stuff. There are other cancers where the tumors grew.
And it's very different, especially like breast cancer and stuff like that, where estrogen is involved. Really dictates if you need like a high THC, low CBD regimen or a high CBD, low THC regimen because of the way that the estrogen actually feeds the cancer and such. So I wish we had a lot more research on it because the stuff we have is limited. But seeing that there are differences like that of which one for which cancer, that there's more that we need to learn definitely.
Well, it sounds like the government, but especially Big Pharma, doesn't want that research to be done because they can't really make
Ding,
very
ding,
much
ding, ding,
money
ding.
off of that. And it could be such a positive thing to take people off of their pharmaceutical.
You're
It's a
right.
big loss for them if they're not controlling it. And they're gonna try and get in the game too, once this stuff goes federal. Like, I use the thing, for example, for people a lot of times, like tobacco by itself as a leaf didn't cause any cancer. It was what everybody went around spraying on it and acting on it that caused that 480,000 deaths. That was man, that wasn't tobacco.
Yeah.
So if you don't think they're gonna try and do that with cannabis as well, you know, we
It's
have to
coming.
be, we have to know it's coming.
Yeah.
Because it's not legal in a federal sense. There's no regulation for this
Right.
drug. There's no regulation either through the FDA or through the farmers associations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, you know, my question is somebody doing some research about the reproductive health of both women and men who are using this drug and how it affects that? If a young person, I mean, you know, I can't imagine having fibromyalgia and being pregnant at the same time. But it's certainly a possibility if you can control the pain of the fibromyalgia that you might want to be pregnant again. Is it safe?
Well, I think that's another question to say, like, there's different studies that look at different things, and there are starting to be more that look at this. They're looking at, in fact, that there are cannabinoids already present in breast milk, because like I said, our bodies make our own cannabinoids, and they're actually starting to look at now, like, how much passes through breast milk and actually makes its way to a child, or what, in utero, what they actually
Right.
absorb, and what, you know, what it actually does, and to be honest, in my opinion, you know, when I was pregnant before, I stopped using anything. I was using alcohol, you know, anything at all, because I was afraid. But from what I've learned and what I've researched, I would feel comfortable medicating
But
and.
it's also, you don't run medical drug experiments on a pregnant woman.
Exactly. So as I said, that can only be my opinion at this point. You know, it's very an opinion-based thing, because there's
But
no
that's one-
cut and dry.
That's part of where we have to go,
Yeah.
and part of the reason why this has to become legal on a national level.
Yeah. On some level, yeah, I agree. One of the,
Or at least rescheduled.
one interesting thing that's along these lines, we talk that it's not damaging to the brain. The human brain develops until the age of 25. Neural pathways are being laid down. They know that THC can affect those neural pathways. You may be in a situation where you're preventing seizures in your children, but you may be contributing long-term to the maldevelopment of neural pathways. We don't know
We
that.
just don't know. They haven't had a chance to. So.
Yeah,
Not
nobody's
do the
gonna
research.
research it.
Right, right.
Well, Kathy has some refreshments back there for us, we can
Oh, nice.
continue talking about that.
Thank you.
Cheryl, did you have a?
Thank you so much.